أجمعين. Inshallah, before I begin the Khaterah, after the Khaterah, you're all welcome to take a tour of the expansion that just opened, inshallah. يروي الامام البخاري والامام مسلم كل في صحيحه عن انس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة. Today's hadith is found in both the collections of Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, where the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم he says تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة, that eat suhoor as there is blessing in suhoor, and told us to do is suhoor for the great amount of blessing and the barakah that is associated with it. And suhoor is a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam specifically. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام فصل ما بين صيامنا وصيام أهل الكتاب أكلة السحور, that the difference between our fasting and the fasting of other faiths, or the people of the book, the Jews and the Christians, is that we have suhoor. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made fasting an obligation upon all the previous nations before us, but the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he gave us this the blessing of suhoor. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he also says in another hadith, السحور أكله بركة فلا تدعوه ولو أن يجرى أحدكم جرعة من ماء فإن الله وملائكته يصلون على المتسحرين. That the suhoor is a blessed meal, so don't leave it, even if one of you takes a sip of water. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His angels send blessings upon the people who observe the suhoor. And the suhoor, many of us, we observe the suhoor out of habit, without understanding the meaning or the idea behind it. And the suhoor is not like what most people think, that it's supposed to be there to give you that extra physical benefit or that extra strength to make fasting easier. Yes, it's true that when you eat suhoor, fasting does become a bit easier, but that is just an added benefit. The idea of suhoor is to attain the barakah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in this time. And when you find yourself, when you observe the suhoor, you find yourself more active in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in reading the Quran, in praying, in fasting. And you find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places barakah in things like in your time, in your wealth, in your health, in your relationships, in your worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, وَلَوْ أَنْ يَجْرَى أَحَدُكُمْ جُرْعَةً مِنْ مَاءٍ, that observe the suhoor, even if it's a sip of water. And since this is an encouraged act by the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for the amount of barakah and the blessing that's in it. And like Sheikh Adnan told you, suhoor is not meant to not to be an entire feast. The suhoor is meant for you to attain the barakah and the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in this time and in this meal. And the time of suhoor, or the last third of the night, is a blessed time throughout the entire year, but especially in Ramadan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives sins and answers du'as and sends His blessings upon the people who observe the suhoor and places barakah in their life. And this is the reward for someone who just observed the suhoor and he hasn't even begun fasting yet. So the reward of sins being forgiven and answers and du'as being answered, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placing barakah in your life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself and His angels sending down blessings upon the person who observes suhoor, is just the reward for the person who has observed suhoor. Imagine the reward when you actually begin fasting, or the reward in the first hour of suhoor, or the first hour of fasting, or the second hour of fasting, or throughout the day. So when Ramadan comes, inshallah, let's make it a habit to observe the suhoor. As the Prophet ﷺ said, تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة, that there is blessing in this meal. And when Ramadan comes and we are busy with the obligatory acts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered us to do, such as praying and fasting, let's not forget that there are smaller acts of sunnah, such as suhoor and others, that we can maximize our gain from Ramadan, inshallah. I hope that was of benefit. يروي الامام مسلم والامام البخاري كل في صحيحه عن انس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Just a quick, so inshallah, just as a reminder, tomorrow inshallah we'll have the final session for Ramadan preparation, so you're welcome to come to that as well between Maghrib and Isha. I forgot to point out the fiqh. So we're going to have Taraweeh here, and even Jumu'ah. We will continue to pray here. The imam will be up there. That space up front will be open. For the Shafi'is completely, you're allowed to pray in front of the imam. For the other madhahib, within the Hanbali and Maliki madhab, there are opinions within that allow it. The Hanafis have a little bit of less of a ease on the issue. But within the three madhahib, there are opinions that allow for people to pray up front. If you ever observed in the haram, during Taraweeh, the imam is praying up going behind and people are praying actually in front of them. So for sunnah, it's not a problem at all. The only difference of opinion that actually exists is when it's during a fard. And at least for the majority of the madhahib, if there is a darura, meaning if the space is set up in that manner and you don't have the ability to set up the way you want, then it's acceptable for you to pray up front as long as the person is not standing immediately in front of the imam, which is the way this is set up, it won't be. Like the way the two areas are actually set up, the person standing up front will not have someone standing immediately in front of them. So we fill up this space as normal, as we did last year, meaning men, and then the last couple of lines, inshallah, the sisters. And then we will kind of have overflow into that area. Men will be on the right side, and ladies will be in a room on the left side. And the sound will make it there normally as well. Unless there's more space here, because after maybe 8 or some people go, you're welcome to come back. But Islamically, it's not a problem to be praying up front. That's what, if you're not comfortable, if you look into this issue and the opinion that I'm offering you're not comfortable with, that's totally you have the right for that to be the case for you. Then if you don't show up on time, you may have to pray somewhere else. But we will use that as overflow, even for Jumu'ah. So for Jumu'ah as well, you'll be able to actually attend the Jumu'ah up front and pray up front. And for the majority of madhab, that's not a problem, especially when there's a need for it. So I just want to share that piece for you at the end. The schedule here, we will have every day a dars after Fajr. During the weekdays, it will be the attributes of the Prophet ﷺ. During the weekends, it will be tafsir of Surah Fussilat. And then we'll have a Quran program after Asr every day with some of the brothers and the scholars who are going to sit, inshallah, and help people who want to recite, to read, or learn, or memorize, or whatever they want to do. And then I'll give a dars right before Isha, so in half an hour before Isha, where I'll summarize for you what's going to be read in the salah and point out a couple of important verses that are worthy of your time to reflect upon. And then we'll run Isha and Taraweeh. It will be 13 rak'ah altogether. With witr, obviously, and dua at the end. And that's the general schedule. Sheikh Abbas will have his khatmah starting at 3 o'clock at the beginning of Ramadan, and then he'll adjust towards the last 10 nights. And we'll talk about the last 10 nights once we come closer to that time of the year, because it's too early. But that's our plan. Inshallah, jazakumullah khair for coming and staying. May that, inshallah, you find benefit in that. You're welcome to take a look at the space, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to come up front as well. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad.